Hey everybody, it is Sam with Nexus Workshop, and this is going to be the first in a series of videos where I'm going to walk you through a actual prop setup with the Nexus Ultimate Prop Controller. So this first one we're going to look at is just going to be button games, and we're just going to go through a couple of them. I've got I don't know, anywhere between 3 to 5 versions of the game, depending on how you want to look at it. We're going to look at a bunch of different ways that we could set up these things. So I've got my hardware down here. Normally I would have you do this after you've done your initial setup so that you can have it tell you which pins are available and you can hook it all up. But we're going to touch this in a second. Here I have my my prop controller itself. So I guess you can see that I've got it plugged in with a single Ethernet cable. That's how I'm getting to it on my network, and is also how I'm powering it. I'm powering it with PoE. So I've got that network cable plugged in, that's powering the prop, and it's getting it hardwired onto my network, so it's nice and reliable. You could do this powering it otherwise and hooking it up with Wi-Fi, but I like this for what I'm doing. I have already previously been working with this prop, so I've got it named and on the network. Like I said, it's plugged in, so it's on the network there. But this is the initial setup. I've wiped everything else, so this is kind of factory ready to go. Here I have the initial setup, and it's asking me for my name. I'm going to name this one button prop. This name is the device name. It's how I'm going to get to it later. It's how it's going to show up on my network. So it is important that this one not have any spaces or weird characters in it. It needs to just be text. You can do camel case, and hostname is not case sensitive for most purposes. But here I've got it. It's called button prop, and that's going to look nice and pretty for me. I'm going to click continue. I am going to skip setting an admin password because I don't need it on my setup right now. And I'm going to choose my setup path. A lot of the time you're going to use a prop wizard, but today we're going to look at manual setup because we're going to look at all the behind the scenes of what's going on. Now, that initial setup is taking me straight in to the actual config page itself. Later when I come get to this, it's going to drop me on the operator page, and at the bottom of that I have open configuration. That gets me here. Whenever I come to the config page, here I am on the first tab. It's my connections tab. And the place I'm going to go to first is I'm going to add all my stuff, my modules, what I have connected up to it. And that is in this section here called inputs, outputs, and modules. I'm going to click add device. Now, in here, because I want to add multiple devices, I'm going to check add multiple. Normally, if I didn't check that, then I would click on one of the things and this would go away. And that's nice and easy to add one thing at a time. But right now, I know that I want to add a bunch, so I'll turn that on, and that's just going to let me add them all together. On my thing down here, I won't need all of this for the first version of the prop, but I'm going to go ahead and do all of my physical I/O all together here. I'm going to add 5 total buttons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons, a relay, and some pixels. That's what I have down here on the thing. I'm going to click close. And then you'll notice that this button has started glowing green. That's because this section is one of the 2 sections on the board that need to be manually saved. They don't save on their own. I need to actually apply these saves. That's because for this, the hardware one, it's actually going to do a full reboot of the board, make sure all the pins are in the right modes, make sure they're all initialized correctly, I have the right drivers loaded, all that fun stuff. It's going to do all that for me, but I'll have to click this when I'm ready. Not ready yet, though, and that's because I'm going to go and set the rest of my things. I actually don't need to do anything about the config of these different items. All I'm going to do is name them. So I've got here button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. And then my last one, I'm actually going to call reset instead of a button number. Here's my relay. I'm going to call that relay. And my pixels are named module 1 by default. I'm going to call them pixels. That's going to get me going there. Now I'm also going to set the pin numbers. It has assigned pin numbers that would work, don't have any conflicts. They were all available, so it's good to go, except that's not how I laid out my physical board, and you'll see why in a second when I show it to you. All my buttons are down the right side. So I'm going to go and change these over to the buttons that I know. Here it's showing me what buttons are available. This one I know is going to be R16. This one's going to be R15, R14. Now here's the first one that's going to have an issue. This one's actually going to be on R13, which is not currently available. It's being used by my pixels, but I know I'm going to make it available in a second. Now I do want to show you though, I selected R13, and up here at the top, you can see that I have a pin conflict. It knows that the 2 of them are conflicting with each other. It won't let me save right now, as long as I have that conflict. Because of that, you can actually choose none on some of these options so that you can get things out of the way and be able to save. But I'm just going to keep going here. Reset is on R11 for me, and then my relay is on L10, no, sorry, L9, and my pixels are on L10. Now, those L's and R's is the left side of the board and the right side of the board. That's what it's labeled on this terminal breakout. You'll notice that each one has the actual GPIO number. That is what is actually from the controller itself. And then the L and R is like the friendlier number that you can see on there. Left side, right side, top to bottom. Nice and straightforward, nice and easy to find. And so that's why we bring all those labels up to the top for you. I don't need to do anything else in here. Everything else I'm going to use as it is. It's choosing my relay is active high, my buttons are active low with pull-ups. All that stuff is good for my defaults. So I'm going to click apply, and now that's going to go ahead and reboot the whole board. So it is saving all that to it, rebooting it, and here we go. It automatically refreshed the page for me. And now I'm going to jump slightly oddly around the interface because of those pixels. I'm going to go do one thing on them, and that's going to be over on this lighting tab here. And come over here. Whenever I add pixels, the system doesn't know how many pixels there are. It's kind of the beauty of pixels. It takes one pin and I can have a bunch on there. So it is actually guessing that I have, I don't know, 20. And that's what it guesses every time. It says, you got a strip of 20. I know that I have 8 here, and so I want to go ahead and correct that. I'm going to change the size to 8. This is the second section on the board, the other one where I have to manually save. But this save doesn't do a reboot or anything. I just had to click save. That is so I can work faster in here when I have a big thing of a bunch of elements that I'm navigating around. I just found that that was easier to handle it that way. So that was the other one. It gives me a big glowing green showing me that I needed to save. I click save. I'm good. I'm done. Now I'm going to start going in order. We already did our connections. Next, we're going to go to definitions. I personally like using states. I don't need to use states, but I like using states. It's a way that I can keep my props kind of straightforward and know what's going on with them. So I'm going to do that for this one, and I'm going to add 2 states. I'm going to add this one, and I'm going to call it armed, and I'm going to add this one, and I'm going to call it solved. These are just names that I'm using. They don't mean anything until I give them meaning, until I create them. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to automatically transition from solved back to armed. So I'm going to say this prop resets itself. It just takes a second. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say solved is going to have an auto to armed with a length of 3,000 milliseconds. So 3 seconds is how long it's going to take. After it goes solved, it'll automatically bring itself back. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to input gestures, and I'm going to add a gesture. It wanted to add it to button 1. I'm going to say, nope, add it to everybody. So all others unassigned. This is the default catch-all. And by doing it just this one time, now all of my buttons have that same gesture set applied to them. It means that I can do short press, long press, double tap, and press and hold on all those buttons. The reason I do it is now I can use the short press actions instead of just using is it pushed, which is going to let me get a little bit better reliability without having to deal with debounces or anything like that. In buttons, you want to know, hey, was that electrical noise or did it really get pushed? And this is one of the ways to do it. The code is able to handle everything for me. I just had to go add that gesture. And now whenever I reference it, I'm going to use the short press instead of using released or pressed. Now that's kind of everything I need to do on definitions right now. I'm not going to use any variables for this one. I don't need them for this. So I'm going to go to behavior. I've defined everything about the board, what pins are there, all those things. Now I'm going to choose to what they do. Now, actually, before I do that, let's go ahead and look at my thing again. So let's think about what I said I hooked up. I told it I had a relay. I told it I had a strip of 8 pixels right here. And then I told it that I have my buttons. So over here, I've got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons. These are button 1 through 4. This one will be my reset button. And remember how I said about the layout? I put those all on the right side here so that they're all nice next to each other. From those, you can see I have my signal wire for each of my buttons, and then the other side of the button is going to ground here. This is just a little terminal rail that gives me A's and B's, and I hook that up to my ground and my power, which you can see right here. I've got my power and my ground coming down to A and B. I got my power and my ground feeding my pixels. I got my power and ground feeding my relay. And those are powering off of my terminal board here, which again is PoE. So one Ethernet cable to my prop. My prop is handling itself. All of my buttons are connecting to ground when they get pushed, and I'm good to go. One signal wire for my pixels, one signal wire for my relay. My relay is not actually hooked up to anything right now. I just got the light on it and little click sounds, but this kind of gets you going. So let's talk about behaviors. This is where I want a thing to do a thing. And we're going to start with action triggers for that. which literally when this happens, do that thing. That's what we're gonna set up first. And again, our first prop that we're gonna build, our simplest one I could come up with, is when I push the button, the mag lock opens. It's that easy. So we're gonna go action trigger, and it's actually set up a lot of this for me already. What I'm actually gonna do, I'm gonna kind of organize myself a little bit for the future here. And I'm going to, instead of just tying the button to the thing, I'm going to create an action trigger that's called when solved. And that's where I'm going to build what happens when the prop is solved. What do I want to have happen? I'm going to take my relay output and I'm going to turn it on. If I was controlling a maglock in this instance, that would mean that I would want my maglock to be connected to the normally connected side of the relay. And then when the relay gets activated, it turns on. It's actually breaking power to the maglock. I could flip that around. I could go either way. However I want to handle that logically in my head between what it says here and what I'm actually doing. But that's how I have it hooked up right now. And I'm going to add another step. This step is going to be for those lights. I'm going to go pixel lighting. It's automatically selected my target because I only have the one pin right now. And I'm going to say, yep, you're going to go solid, and we're going to make it green. So you're going to light up green when we turn the mag on. Yeah, that's all I need to do there. Oh, no, one more thing I want to do there is I want to add a crossfade. So a 1 second crossfade. So instead of just clicking on, it's going to fade on for 1 second. Look nice. But that's my when solved. And I'm going to create another trigger. And this one I'm going to call when reset. Now this when reset, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to take my relay. I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to add a step, and I'm going to take my pixel lighting. I'm going to set it to black, and also give it that same 1000 millisecond crossfade. And there we go. Now I can actually go ahead and test these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to click this when solved. I do that. And if we look down here, we can see that my lights are lit up, and my relay is lit up. And then I'm going to click the button for when resets. And it faded out and the relay turned off. So great, my actions are doing what I want them to. Now, pointing out again for you here, that was these test buttons here can test the entire action, or I can actually expand it back down and I have my individual steps here. I have a test button for each of them as well. So I can test just the single action. Hey, is this thing doing what I think it's doing? And I can also test the entire action trigger. Is this doing what I think it's doing with its whole step, its sequences, any delays I have in there, all that fun stuff. So I've defined what I want to do when the prop solved. I've defined what I want to do when the prop resets. Again, I could have tied this directly to the behavior, but because I know where I'm going with this and that I'm going to grow it a little further, or I might want to reuse it or use it in different ways, setting it up this way is going to behoove me in the end. Now I need to actually make it do the thing with the button. So I'm going to, I need to choose when those things happen. So when solved, when do I want to have had that happen? The trigger type is going to be when state solved on enter. So when we go to the solved state, that fires. And then when reset, I'm not actually going to tie it to the armed state. I'm going to tie it also to the solved state, but I'm going to tie it to on exit. So when we go to the solved state, it does all those solved actions. And when we leave the solved state, it does all those actions. Now it doesn't matter in the future if I go to a different state or which state I come from, any of those things. All it cares about is that solved state. Am I there or am I not? And this is where State Machine can really help me out in kind of thinking about my prop and how I organize it. Now I want to actually tie the button to it. So I'm going to add a new action trigger. This one I'm going to let be on a button. So this is going to be called solved. This is doing the thing. My trigger type is a input, and it's going to be button 1. Instead of pressed, I'm going to set it to short press. Remember that looking at these options, pressed and released is literally the button is pushed in, the button is let out. But short press is the event that happens when that gesture takes place. It was pressed for a defined amount of time, and then it was released. It takes all of those steps to do it, and that way I can avoid electrical noise. Like I said, that whole debounce situation, make sure that the button was really pressed the way I want it to. That also gave me the option to have things like double press, like long press, like press and hold. Or you also see I have the option of on change every time it changes what state it's in. But I'm going to go short press for this one. Again, it's just a little bit better than using the pressed function. But now I say, there we go. And what do I want to have happen when this does it? I want to go set state to solved. So when I push button 1, it'll solve me. And then if we recall, back when I did definitions here, in my states, after solved gets triggered, 3 seconds later, it's going to go back to armed. So this should all be set up. Here we go. We're going to look at my thing. I come down here. I'm going to push button 2, which is not my button, and nothing happens. Good. Now I'm going to press button 1. When I do this, that light's going to go green. That relay is going to turn on. It's going to wait 3 seconds, and then it's going to go back off. There we go. Nice little pretty fade. 3 seconds, and it fades off. There we go. Simple prop. They got access to a button. They did it. There we go. Now, let's say I don't want it to go out. I want it to wait for the reset button. So I'm going to come back over here. On definitions, on states, I'm going to get rid of my auto transition. And so now it's going to stay in that state. Well, now I need a way to reset it. So I'm going to add another action trigger. I'm going to call it reset. And it's going to be triggering off the input of the reset button when it is short pressed. So now I should go to the state. It'll stay there until I push the button to come out. And sorry, I didn't show you guys that. So here's the screen. I came over here on states. I cleared my auto transition. I came to behavior and I added this reset action trigger, which is an input type, reset button, short press. Actually, and you know what? I didn't do it all right. I figured out what the trigger was going to be, but I didn't say what it does. And that's going to be here. It's going to go set state, and we're going to go to armed. So now let's take a look. Let's try it. Here we are. I'm armed. I'm ready to go. I push the button. We solve. It stays there. I push this button, and we reset. And there we go. Now, I'm going to change this around just a little bit. So now, this next game we're going to build, we've already got it to where we're automatically solving and resetting. But now, I don't want the solve to just be a single button. I'm going to actually use a logic rule now to make the solve holding 2 buttons. And so that's going to be like the nuclear keys. Or actually, you know what? No, let's do this. We're going to take that 1 button, and instead of solving it, it's going to transition us to armed. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to come in here, and we're going to add a new state. I'm going to show you what I'm doing as I do it. Sorry, I came over to definitions. I'm here in states. I'm going to add a new state, and this one's going to be called off. I'm now going to come over here to my behaviors. For the reset, I'm going to have that, instead of going to armed, let's have that go to off. And then I'm going to add a new action trigger. It's going to be called arm. And it's going to look for button 1 to be pressed. So when we push button 1, it's going to arm us. What do I want to do when we arm us? I want to go set state. I want to go to armed. And then I also want to come over here and, you know what? No, I'm not going to do this here. So that one, when I push button 1, it's going to arm us. And then let's add another action trigger, keeping to how we've been doing it earlier. That's called when armed. And when armed is going to happen when we enter the armed state. And it is going to take my pixel lighting, and it's going to light it up like an orange. So now, let me add a crossfade. So now, I start with all my lights off. When I push button 1, my pixel strip goes orange. And then I'm going to have some logic rules that actually do the next thing. So let's come up here. Let's create a logic rule. My action triggers was this happens and then that happens. My logic rules are going to be more conditionally looking at when all of these things are true or when any of these things are true. So I'm going to add a logic rule. This is going to be called nuclear switches. It's like the dual key switch thing. And I'm going to be doing match all. So when all of these things are true, what do I need to be true? I need to be in the state armed. I need to be when input button 2 is pressed. And I'm going to duplicate this one because this one's going to be when button 3 is pressed. So when we are in the armed state and button 2 and 3 are both pushed at the same time, then nuclear switches will fire. There's nowhere here for me to define what it does. That's not how I do that. Instead, I'm going to build an action trigger for how it does. And that's going to be my solved action trigger. So solved, instead of triggering off that input, I'm now going to change it so that it's off a logic rule. Nuclear switches when it fires. So now, my whole thing I have going on here, I'm off, everything's undone. When I push button 1, it will arm us, which turns the pixels orange. And then if I'm armed and I hold down buttons 2 and 3, it'll solve us, which is going to turn the lights green. And then I can push the reset button to go back. So I've got all those different states. We're at the beginning of our thing. First, they find the button, they push the button that arms our machine. We have the red light, we're ready to go. Now we're going to push both keys at the same time. And that hits our relay, turns on our green. Now I'm ready to reset the prop. And I can press that, reset, and that is that one. So that's that game. Now, the next one we're going to build is going to be your traditional input sequence. So that one, we're going to come over. Let's see, let me come up here. That one, we're going to come up here on my behavior page, and I'm going to go to input sequences. So this is your traditional like code, is an ordered sequence of button pushes. And that, you know what, that's what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it code. For code, I'm going to work in the continuous mode. Continuous means that it doesn't actually send a fail. It just keeps going and it Pac-Mans. It loops around as it goes. I'm going to say, actually in a second here, I'm going to get rid of my armed state and all of that. But so I'm not really going to care to limit what states it works in. It's not going to matter for me. I'm going to go add mapping. So I'm going to come down here, this first one, and then I'm going to add 3 more. So I'm going to go button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4. Those are the 4 buttons that do things here. And I need to give them each a token. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to come in here and say, what is my code? There we go, super secret code. The reason it does this is I define out what does the thing. A sequence could include RFID modules. It could include double taps or other gestures or things like that that could do different tokens, and I could put those in. My tokens also don't have to be numbers. They don't have to be letters. They could be words. So you know what? Let's do it that way. I'm going to name it after my buttons. The colors on them are red, green, blue, and white. And again, my code here is going to be, actually, you know what? I'm going to mix it up. No, I'm not. I'm going to go red, green, blue, and white. Remember also that I could have them go multiple times. They could go double back on themselves. I could have it be red, green, green, blue, whatever I wanted to do. But I'm just going in order, nice and easy. Now I'm going to come back over. I'm going to go back to the definitions. And remember, I'm going to get rid of my off state. I don't need that anymore. I'm just going to have my armed and my solved like I was. I'm going to come in here to behavior. And in my action triggers, I'm still going to have reset, but reset is going to put me to armed, good, instead of off. I think it actually re-put that in there when off no longer was an option. I think it re-put it to armed. I'll fire that and make sure I'm in the armed state. I'm going to get rid of this action trigger for arm. I don't need that anymore. And the action for when armed, I don't need that anymore. So now I'm back to, I have my when solved, do a thing. When reset, do a thing. To solve it, do a thing. When is it solved? It's now solved when sequence code goes to success. Success is a solve. And then reset is still when I push that button. So we should be all set up. I'm going to come down here. And here we go. When I push the buttons in order, it'll solve. 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. It goes green, and then reset, and it goes back out. Showing that that's not doing it. If I go 1, then 3, then 2, then 4, it doesn't go. I can go 1, then 3, then 2, then 1, 2, 3, 4, and there we go. Like I said, that continuous is just Pac-Manning. So as long as it sees that 1, 2, 3, 4 uninterrupted, it goes. If I go 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, well, sorry, let me reset it so you can see. 1, 2, 1, 3, 4. That wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4 in order, so it doesn't work. And I guess I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, but as far as it's concerned, it's red, green, blue, white, and it solves. So now we're going to do one more cool thing, and that's going to be a meter action. This is going to be the pixel meter action. It's a very cool one. jump in the edit because I forgot to switch screens as I did a bunch of things. So now I'm gonna show you all the things I forgot to show you. Here we are on the states for my latest game, the last game we're gonna go over the pixel meter effect. And so to show that one, I am actually taking out all of my off and my arming and stuff. So in my states, I've gone down to just having armed and solved. In my behavior, I've gotten rid of the when armed and the arming action. And then the other thing I'm going to do is when reset, I'm going to change that from being pixel lighting to being pixel meter. And I'm going to say, hey, when you're off, you're going to be blacked out. And I'm going to set it to manually be 0. My meter is going to be 0. That's going to be when, sorry, no, you're not going to be blacked out. You're going to be dark blue. There we go. And that's going to be on my when reset. Now, the new action I'm going to add one, and I'm going to call it meter. When do I want to trigger meter? I want to trigger it based on a sequence. This sequence, the one called code, and it's going to be on change. So anytime something changes with that sequence, anytime it advances or resets or anything like that, then it's going to update my pixels, my meter. So now what do I want it to do? I want it to be a pixel meter effect. And there's a bunch of parameters here. The ones I'm going to care about are the source is going to be that same sequence, code, and index completed. So it is going to be looking at how far along are we in this sequence. And then it's going to map that across my pixels. This pixel element right here, the pin, which happens to be 8 pixels. There's 4 steps in my sequence. So every time I advance, it's going to go up 2. I'm going to set my crossfade time to half a second. I'm going to turn off to be this dark blue, and I'm going to turn on to be a sort of yellow. With my on min is going to be 50, and my mode is going to be pulse. So when it's on, it's going to be pulsing on and off, and it's not going to go all the way off. It's going to go down to 50. That way it's not as stark. And so any pixels that are on for that percentage is going to be this yellow. Any ones that are off are going to be that blue. All right, we should be set up. I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to push button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, and it goes green because we solved it all. I reset it, and it all goes back to blue. Now, if I go button 1, button 2, button 3, button 1, I'm back down to 25% through my thing, button 2, button 3, button 3 again, I'm all the way down to 0. And I can keep doing that, but it's showing me those things. That on has an effect, the off has an effect. I can manipulate those. It scales based on the size of that pixel. I'm going to do a whole video on the meter effect because it is very, very cool. I'm super excited about that and how easy it is to build that on the prop controller. That's all I have for this video. So this has been a series of button games. We've seen how to just tie a button to a thing. We've seen how to do mess with states and go armed or not. We've seen how to do logic rules and have conditionals. And we've seen how to get all the way up into an ordered sequence and applying a meter effect to that ordered sequence. There we go. Let me know what type of props you want me to try to build next. I have a couple more on the list that I'm going to build right off the bat. But if you have something specific that you say, hey, this is a really interesting use case that we need to build next, how would you orchestrate it? I can definitely figure that out, and I'll shoot you guys a video. Thank you.